Hi, I'm Jenny Laughlin, President of Richardson Area Democrats. Welcome to the second and final Richardson City Council Candidate Forum. Tonight we're featuring the candidates that are in contested races, and the format's going to be a little different. We'll do it as a debate type format where the challenger will have the opportunity to respond to their opponent's answers and positions. We really appreciate all of the candidates' participation, as well as your time and interest this evening. You know, we know that that local politics isn't as sexy as national politics. We probably won't be hitting any hot topics like immigration or abortion issues or gun control, but this actually is where the rubber meets the road. Tonight we'll be talking about the streets and alleys that you drive on. What do we do about the vacated and aging strip centers, local policing, and how do we deal with the changing demographics in our hometown? Historically, about 5% of Richardson comes out and votes in these local elections. So that means that you have a voice here. And we hope that this evening's conversation will illuminate the differences in the candidates and that you'll be better prepared to decide on who you'll be supporting in the upcoming election. Tonight's candidates are in place 4, Kyle Kepner, the incumbent who won his seat in 2019, and his challenger, Joe Corcoran. In place 6, which is being vacated by current council member Steve Mitchell, we have Daniel Burdett, Marilyn Frederick, and Arifin Shamsul. And finally, I'm going to mic over to Joel Montfort, Vice President of Richardson Area Democrats, and tonight's moderator. Thank you, Joel.
Thanks, Jenny. Like Jenny said, I just want to reiterate, thank you all very much for coming. This is our first time ever to do these sort of forums, and we're looking forward to doing them in the future. So it's nice to have everybody attend and go through the questions with us, because this is what it's all about. We want to know who, what, how, where, and this is the best way to do it, is in just an open forum and allow people to discuss their thoughts on different topics. So we're going to open tonight with place 4. With Kyle. We'll let you start since you're the incumbent, Kyle, and we'll give you 5 minutes to say whatever you want on your platform. Go.
All right. Thank you, Joel. Well, like you said, I'm Kyle Kepner, the incumbent in place 4. I am a lifelong resident of Richardson. So to me, that's 50 years. Now, I did leave for college and I spent a year in Dallas and got back to Richardson as soon as I could. I love this city. In fact, I laugh. I say I haven't gotten very far because my mom lives across the alley from me. So I've gotten about, 100 feet from where I grew up. So I've lived in 3 different areas. I grew up in Duck Creek before it was Duck Creek. And then when I was in 3rd grade, my parents moved to Canyon Creek, and I grew up in Canyon Creek and went through school system. And then when I was a younger adult, I lived in the Northwich area on the Madison on Melrose over there off Municipal Way. I also own a small business here, and that really sets me apart from not only the 5 other candidates tonight, a local business, but it also sets me apart from anyone that's on council, with the exception of Mark Solomon, who is terming out this year. Being a small business person is having that voice on council's imperative, because small business is so important to us. And I know a lot of the people in RAD, and I know a lot of people watching this. I know that the candidates here all like to support local businesses. And so to have someone with that voice on council is important, as far as I believe so. I had a look after my first term, and I sat down with my family, and we talked with. I have an 11 and a 13-year-old, and my wife Jazz. We sat down and talked about the time commitment that council took, and during the first year, we spent about 20 to 30 hours a week doing council events, 4 nights a week, 3 or 4 times during the weekday. And I really missed a lot of my children's growing up in the last 2 years. And my wife really, God bless her, really just took the reins and did a lot of coverage for me. And I sat down with them. I said, I asked them if they wanted me to run again. And they said that what I do is important and they would support me and they want me to run. So I had to think about it because it is, when you think about 20 or 30 hours a week, when you run your own business or when you're employed full time, I mean, that's a 80-hour work week for most people. So it is something that was thought about and considered, and we decided. My family said, "Let's keep on doing this." So I've got the commitment from myself and my family as well. One of the questions was, "What do we hang our hat on?" Well, going through living through Palisades and Canyon Creek was an eye-opener and kind of really it got my first interest in city government. I was very appalled that the council did not listen to the citizens during that debate, and that they chose the side of the developers. Now, as we all know, there's a lot of other stuff going on with that, but that was the central theme that I got. And so I dedicate myself to really having a no as an answer first with developers and having them earn my yes and listening to the citizens of Richardson. For example, Owens. Owens had 1,100 people against that project, and they had the developer and the landowner as the only people for it. And what I thought was actually a fairly decent project, they did a horrible job on community outreach. And I didn't want to, but I kind of lectured them from the dais and said, "Hey guys, if you're going to do this, you saw the responses starting as early as October. You should have been out there doing community outreach, selling the project, and getting people behind it." But they failed to do so. So that vote was fairly simple for me. And then on another one was the fast food restaurants or the convenient restaurants over on Richardson Square Mall. That was a project that I was not against, or was against, because I thought that we could do a lot more. But the neighborhood stood up and said, "We want this. We want these businesses." And so I voted with the citizens, despite having a differing view on that. Thank you.
Okay, Kyle, appreciate it. Thank you. Just a reminder to people watching, we are going to be doing this in a debate format. So I will be asking questions to each candidate. They will have 3 minutes to respond, followed by a retort from the opposing candidate of 2 minutes. In the case of place 6, 2 people will get to retort with 2 minutes. And then the initial question being asked to the initial candidate, they will get 1 minute for a final response. That's kind of going to be the format as we go through all this. So this first question is going to be to Kyle. And Kyle, the question is from Pat.
Oh, I'm sorry. Do I get an opening statement as well?
I think the way Jenny wanted to do it was I'll ask Kyle the question, we'll go through it, then I'll give you your 5 minutes, then I'll ask you a question. So it's kind of going to jump back and forth a little bit here.
Okay.
Just to make, if that works for you guys.
That's fine. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So Kyle, the first question is from Pat in Canyon Creek, who's on the call here. In the last few weeks, City Council has held work sessions focusing on projects to be included in the coming bond election. Some projects support infrastructure, maintenance of streets, sidewalks, and alleys. Others are transformational, development and redevelopment projects. On the transformational side of the equation, what is your vision for Richardson in the next 5 or 6 years? what development, redevelopment do you most want to see come to fruition and why?
So, we have multiple areas that we're working on. In the past, it was Spring Valley, which has not been completed. We're in the middle of working on core, and then we have the IQ. Looking forward, the IQ is probably on the top of my list, even though we've got to get the other two done. Main Street, part of the bond package was doing some stuff in Main, alley maintenance and doing some beautification, and all that kind of stuff is really good for the city because it brings in business and brings in people and increases our tax base. So that's a good thing. But forward thinking, the IQ is going to be so integral to this city. That was originally it was for the supply chain buildings for Nortel, for the telecom corridor. And we have so many buildings in that area that are able to be redone, rethought, redeveloped. And we are working with the chamber on getting that to happen. We already have a contract with UTD that are coming in. They're opening a spot in one of the buildings in the IQ. We've already had a few innovative companies open up in there, and we're hoping that continues to happen. Part of the bond package on that would be some of the connectors, two of which are in that area underneath the Arapahoe, the bridge, the pathway underneath the Arapahoe, a beautification part of that bond, and then also allowing more pedestrian-friendly and bike-friendly travel from the west to the east side. And then Collins Road, we're looking at taking that road, shrinking it to one lane each way, and doing a full bike path, protected bike path on that. So we can encourage students from UTD, people from Canyon Creek, Northridge, Heights, to be able to get to the IQ in a multimodal fashion rather than just getting in their car and driving over there. And these kind of things, when we were talking about the bond package, we have a lot of projects that we want to do and not a ton of money. So we have to figure out what is the best projects to do. Those projects along 75 that tie the west and the east side, I think, are so important for the future of our city. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Kyle. Joe, you have 2 minutes to respond.
No, I think that the IQ is incredibly important. I think that the core district is important, and I think all the redevelopment of our big commercial centers is probably the most important thing for our city, especially from a commercial property tax and a business-to-business sales tax standpoint. But I think that is also a much longer-term project, right? That's not something that's just 5 years away. The complete redevelopment may not even be a decade away. It might be much longer than that. So when we talk about what my vision is for Richardson within 5 years, I really like some of the projects and the proposals for the bridge redevelopment along Collins. I love all the bike lanes that Kyle did mention, right? The activated alleys downtown where residents can mingle and eat outside and really enjoy themselves. I like our parks, and we have a couple here on the east side that have been proposed that we're starting small, but we're going to expand. I'm ecstatic for those. And an activated commercial Duck Creek, which I think is going to be great for the residents of Yale Park, with extra shrubs and flowers and benches. It's going to be really nice. And I think the vision for 5 years is a Richardson that is more beautiful, pedestrian oriented, and physically connected than ever before. And that's something that we can achieve in 5 years. Now, 10 years, 15 years down the line, you will see that redeveloped commercial space. And I'm excited to talk about that more tonight.
Okay, thanks, Joe. Kyle, you've got 1 minute to respond if you want.
I think we're both on the same page on that. Really, with those projects in relation to the bond, like I said, combining, we get a lot of people saying, oh, there's development on the west side. Oh, we're doing this on the east side. And there is a definite divide in the city. And we have an 8-lane highway that goes right through the middle of our city. So anything that we can do to bridge the two sides together is the best thing we can do for this city.
Yeah, I agree with all that. Okay, so Joe, we're now going to introduce you. You are running against Kyle in place 4. Go ahead and you've got 5 minutes to speak.
Hey, thanks, Joel. Thanks, Joel. Well, I always think it's nice to start off a debate on a point of agreement. So I hope that we can all agree Richardson is different from other communities. And I mean that in a really good way, right? We have neighbors that look out for us. We have public servants who are the envy of the entire metro area. And we have community leaders who selflessly give their time and talents for the betterment of the city, expecting nothing in return. And the city has been like that. It's been filled with people like that since I was a kid. And I'd like to think that the values I learned from them inspired me to give back to the community I grew up in. So, I care about this city and the people in it deeply. I have the education and experience to make a difference, including 2 master's degrees in pivotal moment where my time and my talents are best suited to moving our redevelopment objectives forward. And I can move those projects forward in a productive way that doesn't leave anybody behind or lose sight of the reason for doing them in the first place. So, like I said, Richardson is different. Many of us could live somewhere else in DFW, but we choose to live here because of our wonderful diversity, our close sense of community, our small businesses, and our great public facilities. And often on the campaign trail, you'll hear me talk about a back to basics approach. That means focusing on our parks, our police, our firefighters, our streets, and again, our public facilities like the Eisman Center or the Heights Aquatic Center. And none of those things that I just mentioned are meant to be profit centers. Sure, they may generate some additional revenue to offset their costs, but they're not meant to turn a profit for the city. They're public, they're owned by you and me. And really those things are the impetus for many city projects today, right? Right now, we're working towards the redevelopment of our major commercial areas. So in the long run, we have the revenue to maintain all of those wonderful things that I just mentioned. So I've done a lot of work in grant making with United Way, 100 Men, and the Communities Foundation of Texas. And so in grant making, what we do is we look at a series of well-intentioned proposals and decide how to best spend someone else's money on projects, right? Projects that'll make the biggest possible impact. And so when you see what we're trying to do in Richardson, I'd really love to use that skill set to help identify catalyst projects. So obviously I'm in full support of our redevelopment initiatives. I think that was addressed in the last question pretty clearly. But as we move forward with the redevelopment, I really want us to remember why we're doing it. We're doing it for y'all, right? The residents. And we're doing it so we have the revenue in the long run to make Richardson a home worth living in. I also think that our neighborhood pedestrian culture makes Richardson stand out as a different place to live. And I don't just want to maintain this culture, I want to find ways for us to actively enhance it. That means making biking more attractive. That means making sure that we reduce traffic on our residential streets. It means making sure that we have enough police officers to keep our neighborhood safe. But it also means looking at development and zoning in a different way, asking right questions during zoning cases to make sure that whatever comes through promotes safety and accessibility for residents. My entire career has been spent in corporate compliance, designing and implementing audits. So I know how to ask good questions, I know how to ask tough questions, and I know how to hold people accountable to their answers. Finally, I will say I'm committed to the engagement and inclusion of our communities of color here in Richardson. For as long as I have been here, we have been a wonderful mosaic of cultures. Our campaign has walked 3/4 of the neighborhoods in Richardson, and I can tell you firsthand that diversity is in our DNA now more than ever. But that said, I've also volunteered a lot on the ground with the AIDS Interfaith Network and the Network of Community Ministries. And I can tell you guys firsthand as well, we still have a long way to go, even here in Richardson, although we are better than most. So, with that said, a priority of mine when I decided to run was to reach out to all sorts of community leaders, leaders in every community, and engage them with their priorities and their vision for what the city of Richardson could be. And that priority of engagement, that won't change when I elected. I promise you guys that. So, my hope tonight is that by the end of this forum, my commitment to maintaining our wonderful public facility shines through. I hope that my experience in auditing and grant making shines through, but really, I hope that it shines through that I'm in this for the right reasons. And even if you don't agree with every answer I give tonight, I hope you guys understand why I gave it. So I do look forward to good questions from this group. I know they have a ton of smart people here. And so let's have at it, guys. Thank you so much for having us and for hosting this.
All right. Thanks, Joe. Appreciate that. Okay, so Joe, my question for you is from Mohammed Salim in the towns of Buckingham. And he is asking, how do we revitalize the parts of the city that are left behind in the era of empty parking lots and dying, decrepit strip centers?
Some adjectives there for sure. I think that they're in the short term, the city does have a lot of tools in its belt, right? We have TIFs that we can use to incentivize developers and incentivize property owners to make improvements. For areas outside of TIFs, we definitely have city money that we can spend with Chapter 380 agreements. Obviously, the bond package is coming through, and that's going to help. I really think that one way to prevent vacancy is to eliminate the perception of vacancy. Prevent it before it happens by eliminating that perception. And so the city can spend some of this money on visual improvements for wayfinding, upgrading our streets. Infrastructure is huge. I mean, that's the number one platform point for a lot of us on this call, right? And I think that refurbishing that will attract businesses. In the long run, we also want to look at something I call or I don't call it. It's a common term, adaptive reuse potential. Adaptive reuse essentially means that, whenever we redevelop a structure, whatever the first tenant is, whenever they move out, what is the likelihood that another business can move in, right? How flexible are we with the tenants? And so whenever redevelopment occurs, making sure that a building has a high adaptive reuse potential so that we don't have buildings that are vacant for a long period of time. That lease turnover is really, really short, right? Or rather, not the lease turnover is short, but the tenant turnover is short, the length of time between tenants. So looking at zoning cases like that and looking at the long-term potential of developments is huge. And I think that's, in the long run, how we prevent vacancy.
Okay, great. Thanks, Joe. Kyle, you get 2 minutes to respond.
So vacancy is going to be an issue. So I sit on the retail committee with the city, and it's a joint venture with 3 of us and the Chamber of Commerce. And with COVID and closures affecting small business more than anything, we are expecting to see a mass exodus of small business, probably up to 30%. Mainly because most of these businesses are on deferred rent and they have to pay back that at some time. So, it's a crisis that's looming. Hopefully that there's some federal grant money, government money that can help stem that. I know that some of the landlords have received federal funds and just waived the rent, and hopefully those are kind of things that we can steer those landlords into getting those funds so they can do that, and we have less businesses closed than is predicted. One thing we really need to do is hope that and work with our developers to buy areas that are in disarray and disrepair and redevelop them. The S curve on Arapahoe, for example, is one that a developer just purchased, and we could see something great come out of that area. Joe mentioned adaptive reuse. We spent countless hours working on the IQ, and adaptive reuse was the main theme of taking those buildings and creating live-work environments where you have a building with 8 employees. You could actually build an apartment on top or 8 apartments on top and have living for your employees. Those are the kind of things that we have to look at in a forward-thinking motion to help with those areas that are in disrepair. Thank you.
Thanks, Kyle. Joe, you get 1 minute to respond to that.
I think that I obviously agree with everything that my opponent just said. I would add that some other things that we can do in the short term, and I've seen the city do this before, is encourage businesses to plant visually appealing things around the redeveloped area. We can look at parking minimums. There are a lot of tools that we can use in the long run. And, I've studied up on these, and I'm excited to hopefully bring that question skill set to council. Thank you.
Okay, great. Okay, Kyle, the final question, we will start with you, and it is, given the recent murder of Marvin Scott III, is it time to reform our city police policies regarding cannabis possession? I don't know if you're aware of it. He was initially arrested for cannabis. So what is your position on this issue?
It's a case I'm not familiar with. The Richardson Police Department has great leadership. One of the things that came after the tragedy of George Floyd was the 8 tenets that a lot of people were asking police departments to change. And we did a comprehensive review of the police department policies. And in fact, all those 8 policies had already been implemented, some as many as 15 years ago. prior to Jim Spivey. We need to make sure that when Dan picks the new city police chief, that he carries on, or he or she carries on that canon to protect our citizens, all of our citizens. We want to have a city that's safe for everyone that's here, everyone that lives here, everyone driving through. And we do. Our crime statistics are good. You know, most of the crime in Richardson is crime of convenience, you know, car break-ins, things like that. We have a very low rate on assaults and serious crime. Not to say that we're immune to it, but we have very low rates in that. But we need to make sure that our police officers are trained for de-escalation. You know, we don't do chokeholds here in Richardson. We need to hold them accountable to other police officers and the citizens. And I think they do a pretty good job. Now, the chief right now would say they're far from perfect and there's room for improvement in all aspects. And I know that they worked really well with RAD in the march that y'all did in the city, and y'all were impressed with the way they worked with the community. And that's something that they tend to do on a daily basis. They're really good at community policing. And I think that we just need to make sure that that sense of community spirit and embracing all of our neighbors is carried on in the next, with the next chief and the next assistant chiefs that move up and such. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks, Kyle. Joe, your response?
Yeah, no, something that I did, again, whenever I decided to run, the first people I reached out to were figures in the communities of color, right, in our city. And they all had positive things to say about our police department. And one of the benefits to walking so much and campaigning on the street is I get to engage with residents and ask them about, you know, what they think about RPD. And they do all have positive things to say for the most part. And so when we talk about what we can do as a city council, what I can do as an individual to help maintain this culture that RPD has and help maintain that trust, I really think the contacts that I have built up throughout this campaign and my time in Richardson, you know, when I'm elected, just keeping up with those, right? Keeping my ear to the ground, always following up with leaders in different communities, following up with the neighbors that I've met who are neighbors of color is going to be important. And of course, again, like I said, our police department has gotten rave reviews, but if that ever changes, you know, I'll be the first one to say, hey guys, we have a problem here. Let's look into it.
Okay, great. Okay, I think that's it for place 4. That's everything we've got for you two guys. So I really appreciate both of you doing all this and participating. I think I'm going to format a little bit and let all 3 of the place 6 candidates do their 5 minutes up front. I think we've got some confusion on that. So I'm going to move on to place 6, and the 3 candidates are Marilyn Frederick, Daniel Burdett, and Erica. Marilyn, I'll let you go first. So you've got your 5 minutes, and we'll just roll through all 3 of y'all, and then we'll start the debating so it's a little cleaner.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much, Joel, and thanks to Jenny. I must apologize to my 2 opponents because you're going to hear the same thing that you heard earlier today. My experience in selling real estate and Richardson for almost 40 years is what has stimulated me to understand what people want in a neighborhood and in a city. And for Richardson really ticks a lot of the boxes for many. When we moved here, I volunteered to be a beautification director in the HOA for Canyon Creek. And anybody who knows me knows how much I love moving bushes and trees around in my own yard. Working in the city's matching fund program, coordinating lots of projects, knowing that we have a budget was great fun, if you will. We focused on a lot of landscaped islands and entrance accents and gathering spots with looter stones and benches. This really was rewarding to me, and I loved doing it. When I went into the LR program, Leadership Richardson program, which is sponsored by the Chamber, that really introduced me to so many other areas where I could be of service. Initially, I was appointed to the Parks Board, so I got to learn even more about our great parks department and bike trails, pools. And after being on the Parks Board for 3 years, I was asked to move to the Planning Commission. Well, the Planning Commission is like serious stuff. You have meetings twice a month, and they're a lot more intense. And I needed to feel like I needed to go outside of the meeting to actually look and visit a lot of these sites, which I did. During my 10 years on CPC, I learned all about form-based code, the challenges of City Line, which was originally called Caruth Bush 75, West Spring Valley Corridor, the Main Street Central Expressway area, and the IQ, which we've kind of chatted about here earlier. I will say that I do believe that the IQ is going to be one of our best answers to stimulation in our city. It seems like the chamber and the city have decided that they could get great minds from the city and the chamber and UTD and Collin College and Richland to kind of build a really attractive area where it'll be potentially one of the best things that Richardson can do, I think. I have to lean back on my real estate experience for just a second, because I am a small business too, Kyle. 40 years and you're all by yourself, and you gotta pay the taxes, and you gotta put gas in your own car, and you have to feed yourself, let alone your family. You understand what it's like to balance the budget. So I have enjoyed learning and listening. I think that's the biggest thing, one of the biggest attributes that we can do, is we all need to listen. We listen to our citizens. We have to listen to our leaders within the city, and we have to problem solve. I problem solve every day of my life in real estate. And so I have one of those minds that I'll drive down a road and I'll go, oh yes, let's do that. I think a lot in the car. So anyway, I hope everybody's enjoying this. But I really do think it's one of the attributes I find most rewarding for myself is that kind of problem solving ability. When it comes to our city, I think we all have the same policy in priorities. We all want to have better streets, roads, alleys. I ride them all. I drive them all. I know which ones are bad, and I know which way to go to miss the potholes. Our infrastructure, of course, is very important. So is our areas of redevelopment that we've talked about, and all of you have already given a lot of the same answers that I would have given. But on the police and fire, I think there is no better way that we can support them financially is utmost. Public safety is invaluable, and we have to have that as a top priority. Private property rights and homeowners, not association, sorry about that, is a top priority to me. And Richardson has been good for me, and I want to work together to make it even better. I want to be your voice at City Hall. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Marilyn. I appreciate that. Erfan, we'll let you fire up next. You got 5 minutes. Can't hear you, Erfan. Your mic's muted.
All right, can you hear me? Okay, thank you, and I appreciate having this event tonight. It's a very important event. and we all appreciate that. Now, Richardson is a beautiful city, and it's the diversity. It has many things that people loves, and that's why little over 15 years ago we moved to Richardson. Now, my background: I came to America 29 years ago as a student, and definitely when I came as a student, I didn't have any money, almost none, little money just for the tuition, and definitely I didn't have any family with me, no relatives, nothing. And my first job I earned about $4.25, and out of that, about $2.70 I spent to call my mom in Bangladesh. So it was very difficult time for me. I was about 25 that time, and but this difficult time it taught me how to live on a small budget, and I did it. I did not get into a trap of the credit cards or anything else. I managed my time. I really focused on achieving the American dreams, and after with some good decision and hard work, I completed my master's degree in civil engineering, and then and now after 20, I've been running my own business for last almost 19 years. I own and operate one small engineering consulting firm, and the specialization in municipal infrastructure. So I've been working in this municipal infrastructure consulting business almost a little over 30 years. So since moving to Richardson 15 years ago, I have uh, uh, I have served on a few committees. I served on the zoning board, City of Richardson, almost 10 years, and then I served on building and standard commission. That's also almost 10 years. So these are two boards that basically one committee, one same board members there. And I have served on uh, that 2020 census committee that was appointed by the mayor, and then I serve on the RISD bond steering committee, and currently I'm serving on Richardson Chamber of Commerce DVI, diversity, inclusion, and uh, diversity, equity, and inclusion task force. And this is this is one of the beautiful things that in America, that if you work hard and focus, you can achieve your American dream. And I have a wonderful family. And since after all this, I started almost from zero, and started, at least now I have something. And I do appreciate that. And giving back is so important. That's why. And I got involved with whatever opportunity I get to the community. I joined the Leadership Richardson program back in 2009 or 10, around that time, and I'm graduate class 25. And that Leadership Richardson program basically opens my eye how to serve more to the community. And during that time, really after that, I joined the zoning board, and it was not easy for me to join any of the board and commission that time. I'm glad that Bob Townsend was there and few other councilmen. So with their support, and I was able to join the zoning board, and then I stayed with that board almost 10 years. Now, and then recently I graduated from Richardson Citizen Police Academy, and so with this with this leadership program that I was there, that taught me a lot about our city. Now, currently, I'm serving as a president of INT, and that gave me, more option to serve our community, which is, we arrange many program, which is like free flu shots. Even during the pandemic that we had last year, we gave food drives, and then also we had, uh, uh, you know, COVID-19 different kind of workshop that we had, training and education, the safety procedure, and this was really a great opportunity. And during the last storm that we had opened up INT. As soon as we got the electricity, we had opened up INT as a warming station, and we kept INT also like overnight stay. So we gave out almost 500 hot meals during that time. So these are the things that shows that that we need to be active in our community and help each other. And that's one of the reasons really I'm running for the city council, and I think that would give me additional option to serve our entire community even better way. And my top 3 priority is keeping our city safe and taking care of our aging infrastructure and protecting the homeowners. And now keeping the city safe, I know our Chief Spivey, Police Chief Spivey, since our little before the Leadership Richardson program. He was my classmate there. And since then, we kept very good communication. That's one of the examples that by keeping good communication and good engagement with the police department and outside organization, it can open up and be transparent and help each other and trust each other. So I trust really so much our chief that we had really lots of open discussion during that time. Sometimes we talked, chat like middle of the night, sometimes 2 o'clock in the morning. So I really appreciate to our police department for the help that they have provided the time that we needed the most. And now, so I'll be very strong supporter of our police department and fire department for additional training and open up more communication and engage our community members with different programs. So that would give lots of information to each other and trust, build that trust more. So that's how we can improve this policing and other things, safety of our community. Now about the infrastructure, city of Richardson is a very old city, and I know that as an engineer, I have over 30 years of experience managing this kind of infrastructure projects and designing this. So that will give our city council a unique leadership opportunity there, that we can understand our city staffs, that what program they are coming up with, and plan more effective and efficient way managing our our money. So that's very important, that we need to start those rehab or redesign or replacement projects on time and very effectively. So that would be really one of my priority to work on it. And other things is that I know that our tax as a homeowner, I understand that the home value is going up really high, even though our tax rate remains the same. Our tax is going up. So bottom line, money is going, definitely we have to pay more money down the road if the price keeps going up. So that's something that I would like to start the conversation with our council members, and also talking to the state representative and finding a way how to how to minimize that and or stabilize that. And that's something that I'll be working and focusing on. And that's why all these things, that's why I think I'm running for the city council position.
Great. Thank you, Garrison. I appreciate that. Okay, the third candidate running here is Daniel Burdett. Daniel, go ahead.
Thank you, Joel and Jenny, and thanks to all who are producing this forum for us tonight. I really appreciate the opportunity to speak to your members and to have this video live on the web, so we have an opportunity for the voters to hear directly from us. And I'll try to be respectful of everyone's time tonight. And I've lived in the city of Richardson for 20 years, and really have developed a true appreciation for how great the city is and how well it's run. And having been a consumer of the great services and amenities, I've also noticed that it does take thoughtful and selfless leaders to volunteer their time and energy to keep that momentum going forward. A little about myself: I'm born and bred here in Texas. I lived on a farm in East Texas when I was a young man, and moved to Waxahachie to grow up and graduate high school. From Waxahachie, I went to Texas A&M and joined the Corps of Cadets there, and marched in the Fighting Texas Aggie Band, and really started to form some of my leadership, or hone some of my leadership skills. I served as the executive officer of my 90 cadet outfit in my senior year there. After graduating A&M, with a degree in computer science, I came back to the Metroplex really to start my career. First lived in the Duck Creek neighborhood, moved there in April of 2001, so just about 20 years ago. And then about a decade ago, my wife Catherine and I and our dog moved over to Shadywood Lane in the Cottonwood Heights neighborhood. So we're actually in our second house now on Shadywood Lane. We really love this neighborhood. But professionally, I've worked in medical technology field for 21 years with Biorad Laboratories. I started as a software developer and now manage multiple teams of developers here in Texas and in Southern California. I love innovation and finding creative ways to solve problems and make processes more efficient. I actually have 2 patents to my name from some of the techniques that we've developed to deliver product information to our customers in 35 languages around the world. My volunteer work really began through involvement with our church. I was singing the chancel choir at First United Methodist Church, and I've had the opportunity to take some leadership roles there, bass section leader, president of the choir. I've served on the church council and a couple of other committees throughout the church, and currently serve on the First United Methodist Church Foundation Board of Directors. Now, one year in our Sunday school, Kat and I were tasked, as each couple was, with defining kind of a family motto. We gave it some thought and came up with something. We sound simple, but it's maybe harder to achieve, but we really strive for it. It's work hard, play hard, and give back. So we really try to live our lives in that fashion. And meeting other leaders in the church kind of opened some doors and opportunities to serve civically. And I first got involved with the Wildflower Arts and Music Festival. Kat and I produced the Budding Talent vocal competition for kids for the last 10 years, and had the opportunity then to serve on the executive steering committee for that festival for the last 6 years. Most recently as the chair-elect for that committee, but that was right about the time the pandemic hit. So I'm confident it will be back. Wildflower will be back. But I also went through Leadership Richardson, and you'll notice that's common between the 3 of us running for place 6. And it is a program designed to inspire and cultivate leaders in the city, and I think it's done a great job with that, as 3 of us have stepped forward to try to fill this vacancy. That was also my first opportunity I was on the Public Safety Committee and had the opportunity to meet with the Chief of Police and Fire and Emergency Management, really kind of understand how they operate. Also, that was my first visit to City Council as one of our homework assignments. It really kind of opened my eyes to what the council does and what kind of decisions are brought to them and how they set the vision and strategies for the city staff to implement. Wanting to stay engaged after Leadership Richardson, I joined the board of directors for the Alumni Association, Leadership Richardson Alumni Association, and served as the VP of membership and later as the president of that board, which really, again, furthered my capability to meet other inspired leaders around the city, and both within the city staff and within nonprofits, et cetera. So it really helped keep me engaged. And then in 2015, I was appointed by City Council to be a Parks and Rec Commissioner. And so I've served the last 5 years there. Unfortunately, I had to resign that position to declare my candidacy here. So we'll miss serving in that role. But that really, as commissioners, we visited all 37 parks in the city. I don't know if all Richardson residents know that there's a park within a 10-minute walk of every home in the city of Richardson. So also, of course, got to explore the trails and a lot of the recreation facilities. But I've been following the city council and attending off and on for the 8 years since Leadership Richardson. And my vision for the city, I boiled it down to what I call the 4 I's. And infrastructure is obviously going to be an ongoing need in a city as old as Richardson, and we must continue to support maintenance and modernization of our streets, alleys, and sidewalks, and of course, our public safety. Innovation is also key to keeping Richardson a vibrant city, and I support the effort to create that innovation quarter and invite and inspire new businesses to start and stay in Richardson. Citizen involvement is also key to the success of the city, so I'll promote continued engagement with our neighbors and coworkers. And finally, inclusion. As we've heard mentioned, Richardson's a very diverse city in a number of aspects, and I want to make sure that Richardson stays a place that we're all proud to call home. So I would appreciate your vote on May 1st. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Daniel. Daniel, we're actually going to start with you for the question. So here's the first one. You'll have 3 minutes to answer. If you had questions about potential systemic racism in any of the city departments, how would you work to begin an analysis of it without any bias? That's from Steve in Canyon Creek.
Great. Thank you, Steve. I appreciate that question. And I'm proud to say, at least as far as I've observed so far, that has not been an issue. But as I've mentioned, within the last 10 or 15 years of really being involved in the city and getting to know the leadership specifically within the city, I think I had the opportunity to pick up a phone and make a call and really start with the city manager to make sure we're fully visible on what the reported claim is, and if it's something something that needs to be investigated and determined, is there a true bias, systemic or even individually, that we need to be on the watch for and correcting so that it doesn't become a systemic problem. So again, kind of cultivating some of the relationships that I've built up over the years, I think would allow me the latitude to make that phone call and have it be understood that it's not necessarily a personal attack, but really a true inquiry into making sure that we don't have a problem, or if we do, addressing it and being able to resolve it or eliminate that problem. So, thank you.
Thanks, Daniel. Marilyn, you have 2 minutes to respond. Your mic, please, Marilyn.
There we go. As I mentioned before, I really have a interest in listening. So I would probably figure out a couple of people that I could go and talk to, and I would meet them in person, because I do think that a one-on-one talking and having a relationship with somebody and finding out how they really are reacting to any questions, and not necessarily I wouldn't go to the person that might be the source of the prejudice, but I would figure out who I could go and talk with to kind of get some background. And I would do my own little investigation of what could possibly be something that is misunderstood, or if it's a real issue. So I'm a one-on-one type person. When I deal with people in real estate, I usually meet them, because you can understand a lot when you're visiting them, when you're talking with them, and you see their body language and you see their expressions and how they really feel about something. So that's what I would do.
Thanks, Marilyn. Erickson, you got 2 minutes to respond.
Great. Yeah, it's not really 2-minute answer. It's longer than that, but I'll keep it 2 minutes. This is something that I can tell you that my first job, when I had the engineering job, first one, I used to work like 70 hours average, almost a week, most of the Saturday, Sunday. So anyway, I'm not going to indicate anything or say anything, but I know that one thing we need to do is, like, before something happens, we need to prevent it. So if I get elected, I hope I will get elected, and I will try to change the environment, not change environment. I would get involved with many programs, many things. So once we know each other, once everybody know each other, and things gets much better. So I would really work to prevent anything that kind of things happen. That would be, and also I'm going to encourage our community, our larger community, to have more programs together and engagement. So, but if something happened, our city policy right now, as of today, that we have a chain of command. We have to work with the system. So right now the policy is like, we talk with the mayor, we go with, and then we talk to the city manager, and then city manager takes care of the system. So, but I will find a way to direct communicate and try to solve the problem afterward. But I hope not to see that kind of things, because if something happens, damage control is more difficult, and stopping that is much easier. I think we have to have the right intention and do it right.
All right. Thanks, Irvin. Daniel, you got 1 minute to close the argument.
I think I will fiercely agree with both of my opponents on that. I think it is critical to to hear the complaint and let it be known that that is understood and something we take seriously, and then follow our due process to really make sure we're identifying whether or not there is an actual problem that needs to be addressed, either specifically or systemically. So I think we're fairly well in alignment on that.
Okay, great. Okay. The next question is going to be asked to you, Marilyn, first. And the question is from Bob in Canyon Creek. And he asked, what kinds of policies or incentives can Richardson put forth to encourage use of residential renewable energy, such as rooftop solar, cellular's not it, solar.
Okay. Well, I'm a big proponent of anything that's going to save energy. I now drive a hybrid car. I have been recycling for probably 20 years, even before Richardson had blue bags. I always take my papers to the school. I've done that and anybody that is in my office knows that I used to take home the recycling from the office and put it in blue bags and put it out because there was no commercial recycling back then. Incentives. I would have to look and see if the state, with their ability to manage a crisis in electricity, could possibly generate some funds that could be used to incentivize for solar, also tankless water heaters, new windows, more energy efficient insulation. There's lots of areas that I think could possibly be beneficial. And I encourage, because I've already done all that kind of stuff in my own house. I put the foam in, I've done the windows. It's just a matter, would I have liked to have had some incentives for that? Sure. Would somebody else do it? I think they would, but it's going to take probably a federal program to actually bring it down to the city level in order to see if we could get that work. But I think ultimately it is a program that could benefit your value in the future. I don't think people aren't as impressed right now, except with thermal pane windows, but I don't think they're that impressed with the things they don't understand. They haven't seen a value dollar to it yet. But I'd be right there chomping at the bit to make sure that our citizens could have that information.
Great. Thank you, Marilyn. Appreciate that. Daniel, you have 2 minutes to respond.
Great, thank you. That's a great question. And there are, of course, things that the city does and things that the state does and the federal government does, and there are some incentive programs, tax rebates or tax deductions you can take for placing solar panels on your roof. And from a city perspective, one program that the city does operate, and I would have to look and see if solar panel addition would fall into some of the home improvement programs, where as you make improvements to your house and the value of your house therefore goes up, there are some programs that allow you to, if you apply for that program, to not have to pay basically pay your current tax valuation for a number of years. I don't remember exactly the details, but there are some city programs like that that could provide some incentives if we could make sure that they apply to addition of solar panels. And what I'll have to be challenged to do is see how I can promote that without making it look like it's self-serving, because I've been considering solar panels to ride, so would love to see if that's a viable option for us, and certainly provide a capability to often to pay or feed energy back into the grid during the high productive days, which benefits all of us from reducing the amount of coal needed to burn. So yeah, I would love to. I'll dig into that program and see if that applies to adding solar panels to your roof. It's a great question. Thank you, Bob.
All right, great. Appreciate it, Daniel. Arifin, your shot. You got 2 minutes.
Okay, so it's a wonderful question. Yes, I mean this kind of thing that definitely we need to encourage all kind of different savings that we can do. But one thing we need to say that this COVID-19 is going to have huge impact on our budget. So definitely, whenever the opportunity comes, we'll be looking at that kind of incentives. But one thing that we personally, I love to do recycling. I do all kind of things. First thing I got here in the college, that was the hot thing, that recycling things. But also as a business person, I understand that cost effectiveness. So watch out before you install anything, even though if you don't get incentives. But make sure that you're not going to end up spending a lot more money and stuck with some kind of agreement that you are not looking at, because lots of agreement right nowadays comes with so many small fine print. I hear lots of complaint from different friends and family. But of course, I think if city gets involved with these kind of things and educate our residents and work with the state or federal levels to get some incentives, and that way that our residents doesn't have to really work on those fine print detail and stuck in the wrong agreement with the installer. So yes, I would definitely look into this and hope we can get to improve many other things, not just this one.
Okay, great. Thanks, Arifin. Marilyn, you got 1 minute to close the argument.
I didn't realize I had another minute. I guess I would have to say that it's all about an education, and I know what I was going to say. The city of Richardson has that wonderful program, incentive program, but it really is not based on just an individual item. It has to be your overall value of your house, and then when you add to it, then they go back and they recalculate what your new value is. So it's not just a one. They just don't add on solar panels, and then you do get a tax rebate on the difference for 10 years. And the wonderful thing about the city of Richardson is when they first decided to implement this program, which was 15 years ago probably, they came to the realtors with an idea on how they wanted to do that rebate, and we told them what would work and what wouldn't work. So they really listened to us. Thank you. So I'm done.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate you stopping at that point. Okay, the next question we are asking to Arifin. The recent studies show that our overall street conditions are steadily worsening. What steps do you suggest we take to remedy this as soon as possible? And how do we make sure reconstruction is effective and long lasting? This person is saying they've noticed a lot of cracks in the brand new work they've done on Spring Valley in 2019. And this is from Mohammed Salim. So.
That's great. Very good observation. Yes, this is something that is very important, that when you do something, you want to make sure that you are doing the right things, because otherwise you would be replacing the stuff again in a few years. And first thing, I would like to see that we have, I know the city has a plan for some years. They know the street condition. Even that city assistant manager recently made a statement that the infrastructure is deteriorating faster than they can maintain. Even though they are doing wonderful job, great job, we can say all these things, but even them, they are saying that yes, we are unable to maintain the speed that is deteriorating. So my first thing would be that we make a plan for 20 years or 25 years, very clear plan, communicate with our community, our residents, our citizens, so they know exactly what's going on. and target the area that and to replace and come up with a new plan, new design, which is more sustainable design, and also that will be part of the things would be like beautification, put the right improvement, right structure there that will attract some other developer, some other business in this area. So yes, choosing the right design and to the material for the it's all depends on each location at a time. So we can't just pick one thing that's going to be good for any area, because sometimes if you put the asphalt street, it will go, you need to replace that much, the life is much less than the concrete street. But sometimes there is some few things that sometimes residents don't like the concrete street, some residents don't like the asphalt street, and also the curb and gutter, how to use the rainwater, those rain garden around the location that we can put, and those garden will make this place much beautiful and more attractive, and we don't have to send this water down to the stream. So there are many things we can do, but those are going to be we need to do some study and take the inventory and make decision and know exactly what we have and what we need to do next 20 years. Things we'd like to see.
Okay, thank you, Irfan. I appreciate that. And I will go to Daniel to respond. You got 2 minutes.
Great, thank you. And as everyone on this panel has noted, infrastructure is a concern. And if you watched the City Council meeting from a couple of weeks ago, which every citizen has the opportunity to do through the city website, they did talk about how they were effectively declining, and part of that is a symptom of the fact that the city was built quickly and expanded in the 60s, 70s, and 80s specifically, and so with a lot of rapid growth, now we're trying to deal with big segments of streets that are now 40 and 50 and 60 years old. So trying to maintain that is certainly a challenge. I'm not aware of the issues on Spring Valley. I do live right off of Spring Valley, and so I drive that frequently. But in corporate America, we have a process called vendor qualification. So if we go through periodically and review the work of the vendors that we're using, and that may be an opportunity to, if there are issues that were introduced by a specific vendor or a contractor that implemented work, perhaps that's something we could look back and make sure that either they address it or that we don't use that same contractor for future work if that is confirmed to be a deficiency in the work, because we don't have the spare money to do things twice right now. So we're barely getting by to do it right the first time. So it's a great question. Thank you.
Thanks, Daniel. Appreciate that. Marilyn, you're up next. You've got 2 minutes.
The conversation actually and the comments that were just made reminded me of something. First of all, I do believe that our vendors should be accountable to the city. And it reminded me, I was going to be interviewed by a prospective employee of the city of Richardson. And I was also listing a house. And this was when the city was doing some flat work on the sidewalks. And as I'm going up to the house, I see the incredibly poor new sidewalk. And I think, wow, I took a picture of it with my phone. So then a couple days later, I have an interview with this potential city employee, and I waited till after I got the job of him hiring me to sell him a house. And I said, I hate to ask this, but could I give you a picture of a sidewalk and have you tell me that this is the quality of workmanship that you think Richardson expects? And he took that and he said, what's the address? And I gave him the address, and probably within a month, it was replaced. So I do things in a little bit more covert way to get things done, but I do believe our vendors need to be accountable to the city for the workmanship that they do. So that's my example.
Okay, great. Thank you. And we're back to Erfin. Closing statement on that for 1 minute, please.
Wonderful. That's great. I'm glad for this 1 minute. Yes, I know the fact that all the vendors are accountable to the city, to the client, and I have worked with many other city, Dallas, Fort Worth, Arlington, but not intentionally done in Richardson. But there are a few things that I would make sure that our sometimes problem happen. It's not necessarily just for the contractor. It happened because sometimes the budget not appropriately put the budget. Like when you put a new street, you have to do the geotech. And I know personally that many city does not want to do the geotech. They'll take one standard geotech result and apply that to many others street in the area. So the contractor is not going to take responsibility for those kind of things. So now this is something that need to work with our, if I get the opportunity, and I hope I will get the opportunity to be your councilman, and I'll make sure that our city has, those kind of policy in place that that will make sure that we can make our vendor accountable for that, and they're responsible for the something that we already spend millions of dollars. So yes, I mean. I would definitely, this is something that I look forward to do. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Okay, I'm going to spitfire a question we got on the board here that I think is a pretty interesting question from Ertl Paxoy. He is asking, I just want everybody 1 quick minute on this. Give me your thoughts. We'll start with you, Joe. What is your vision for green spaces in Richardson beyond the planned bond proposal?
Yeah, no, I think that's a really good question. I'll just say that green spaces in Richardson, I mean, we have some awesome parks already. I think finding ways to connect all of those parks to each other to make it so that joggers and cyclists and everyone else who uses them can get across the city effectively is one awesome thing that we have. We have some vacant land that I know we're developing into some really cool new parks as well. And then on top of that, I really do think that we need to encourage property owners to beautify our sidewalks, even in our commercial districts. I think that that will add to the visual appeal and create a sense of place and community in all areas of our city.
Kyle, you got a minute and opinion on green space.
Sure, thank you, Joel. We're a landlocked city. We have right now we have around 400 acres open in Richardson, and over 200 of those are owned by UTD. So I would like to see we have some space available for apartment buildings and some more commercial development. I would like to see some buildings or some developers build up instead of sprawling campuses, sprawling apartments, and so we can have a green space in conjunction with a new development. I think that's the only way we're going to get any more green space than we have currently with future redevelopment. So, I'm not talking skyscrapers. We're the only city really in the area that doesn't have high rises for the most part. We have a handful of them. But if you have 1,000 apartments, instead of building them over 200 acres, you use 100 acres, and then you have 100 acres for green space. That's a win-win, 100%.
Okay. Erfin?
Yeah, this is, we need to keep this thing in our mind that just green space, not necessarily those vacant land that we have. We have to, since our city, all the roads and infrastructure, they're all old, and we are, you see that the new bond program is coming for redevelopments, reconstruction of those roads. So we need to, this is the perfect time to think about that. How can we create green space, smaller space into those area? When there is many way you can do, like you can create the rain garden, something that it does not cost any additional money sometimes, and you can save money down the road, for your waste, the stormwater drainage system. You don't have to create a larger system there. So that will reduce the flooding and also the problem down the road. So there are many things. Really, I'm very excited. If I get the opportunity to get involved, I'll be working with our councilman teams and our citizens to create this kind of green sustainable environment that will beautify our city. And this is the right time. This is a perfect time to move with this kind of creative idea. And because once you build, you cannot redo that for another 50 years. Even the life of those road and things are about 30 years, but basically we stay another 60 years at least before we can do anything on those roads. So this is the perfect time. I'd like to have your vote and be your voice at the City Hall and make our city one of the model city, exemplary city in the nation.
Daniel, your thoughts on green space?
Sure. Yeah. As a Parks Commissioner, I love green space, and as a frequent outdoor user, runner, and cyclist, et cetera, I love green space. And as Councilman Kepner mentioned, we are landlocked, so there are limited opportunities to really expand on our green space. One thing that I'm very proud as I was on the commission, the city made that very strategic purchase of the Spring Creek Nature Area, and really enjoyed the fact that will remain a forest and remain, providing the mayor's referred to it as the lungs of the city. So it's producing oxygen for our city right in the heart of the city. So very, very proud of that. On a smaller scale, we have some opportunities, like even at the public safety there at Greenville and Beltline. I'm excited to see some green embankments right around that corner to really beautify that. And across the street, what used to be it's been a variety of businesses since I've been here, but was able to remove a building. There's some parking there and some pavement there, but there were also strategically trees planted there. So little opportunities like that, I think, are great for the city to accomplish. Thank you.
Marilyn, your opinion?
I'm a tree hugger, so I love the idea of preserving as much green space as we possibly can, and I'm all for building vertically. We need to do it in a very smart way. Come on, Richardson.
Great. Thank you. Okay, now we're going to do one last little thing here. Everybody's going to get 2 minutes just to say whatever you want to put into your closing thoughts. I'm going to do the reverse of what I just did. So I'm going to start with Marilyn.
Okay, thank you so much, Joel. And I really appreciate it. I just have to say that in my actions of the last 15 years that I have been volunteering in this city, I have always put private property rights and home ownership as number one. And that's what I will continue to do as your neighbor, as your friend, as your city council person. Thank you again so much. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Marilyn. Daniel, your turn.
Hey, thank you again, time and attention tonight, and what will live on in the future on the web. So I appreciate this opportunity to speak to you all. As I said, I've been a resident for 20 years and have been enjoying the greatness that is the city of Richardson. And back to our family motto is work hard, play hard, and give back. And I really look forward to the opportunity to use my time and talents to give back to our friends and neighbors here in the city of Richardson. As I mentioned before, I've actually been a frequent attendee of city council work sessions and meetings, even attended goal setting and budget review sessions. So I've really been studying what's involved with this responsibility and with this role and the time commitment that it's going to take. And I'm ready to step up to that commitment at this point. I would love to have your vote on May 1st. Daniel Burdett for City Council Place 6. Thank you again.
Thank you. Eric, closing statement.
Thank you. Nearly about 45 years ago, there was a little boy used to watch that Wild Wild West I don't know how many of you remember that, a small TV show that. And that boy was wondering about that country. And after 45 years later, that boy become a man, has some gray hair, and finally achieved some of the American dream. But that took lots of years of hard work and good decision. And I want to be your voice at our city hall, and I will work hard just the way that I work hard for my own business, my own family, and I will never disappoint you. And I'll be always with you on your side. And I will work hard to make our Richardson as one of the best and model city in the nation. Thank you. Vote for Arifin Shamsul, place 6. On April 19th is the early vote, and April 19 through 27, and election day is May 1st. Thank you.
Right. Kyle, your turn. I can't hear you, Kyle. Mike.
Here we go. So I want to add something that I didn't mention before. In May, I'm starting the Citizens Police Academy. My wife just completed, and she's actually on the Citizens Police Academy board. And in reference to your question that you had asked me, I know the upper management of the police force, and this is going to give me an opportunity to work with the police officers themselves. And I'm really excited to get that knowledge in order to help us continue having a safe city. So I want to thank everyone for watching. I would like everyone to vote for me, re-elect me. I'm the one on this panel that has spent 2 years on council. I think I've done a good job. I think that I put the interests of Richardson and the citizens first over all other outside interest. And I will continue to work tirelessly for everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Kyle. Joe, your turn.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the theme of tonight is agreement, right? So I'll say for myself, I've worked for both the Fortune 500 company and a startup like the types we're trying to attract to the IQ. In this campaign, I've met with over 100 civic leaders. I've watched every city council meeting since October 2019. I've watched the past 3 budget workshops. I've read hundreds of pages of zoning documents, and I've actually looked at all 5 budgets strung together on a giant Excel sheet to get an idea of trends. So like Daniel, I've done my homework, but I think what's most important is that I've spent the past 4 months actually going around and meeting residents, engaging with their concerns. And when I do that, I always have my business card with my phone number and my email that I hand to them. So just to end tonight, if I somehow I miss you over the next few days, or next few weeks, my phone number is 210-260-8331. Give me a call at any time. My campaign email is joe@joe4richardson with 4 spelled out.com. Please, I'd love to hear from you. I'd love to hear your thoughts, and I'd love to come meet you if I haven't already. Thank you guys so much.
Okay, Joe. Yeah, thank you, all of you, very much for everything. I want to now, and she will close us out. Thank you.
Wow, that was quite an evening with a few little glitches on our technology, but I think really good information from all of our candidates. And I want to thank you all so much for the time that you spent with us this evening, for all of your energy and efforts that you put into campaigning and the work that you've done and will continue to do for our city, whether you're elected or not. So I want to tell, just in case you don't know this already, early voting begins on April 19th. Arifin was talking about this. April 19th is when early voting begins, but you need to make sure that you are registered to vote by April 1st. So please make sure that your registration is current, that you're registered where you live and all the rest of that by April 1st. April 19th, get in there and start that early voting. And May 1st is actual election day. I'd love to see us grow our turnout on a municipal election. It'd be great to grow that number. grow that number. Let's get to 10%. Be crazy. Anyway, hey, I have really enjoyed this evening and look forward, you guys. And, you know, as Marilyn says, let's go Richardson. Good night.
Thanks, Jenny. Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Good night, everybody.
Good night. Thank you.